So, Martha, I would like to begin with what we just experienced. You came in the room and said, hey, it's so many people. Like, we saw 3 groups. Everybody was queuing up with you. And everybody we even interviewed people queuing up. Everybody was happy and to have your picture. How does it feel for you to be like such a meet and greet today?
You know, it's amazing. I'm celebrating 48 years in show business. Motown's 50th, but I was only there like the second year that they had started. And to have people still remember and have that much joy and that much love regarding our music. I saw the Temptations last night, and the music is so wonderful. I mean, the crowd, there's a certain place that you go in your heart when you participate with Motown's music. And I think it was put there by the Funk Brothers and the little small studio that was Barry Gordy's house. The fact that we were all in need of money, like Barrett Strong said, the best things in life are free. Well, we all needed money, but Barry provided it for us. He had a house that he turned into a studio, and everybody that went there, I mean, 24 hours a day you could hear music being done. Everybody that went there had a certain love for the music and for producing and developing artists. And after 4 years of artist development, being trained by the greatest that Motown could find, we have some music that'll last forever, and I'm so proud. And they were singing with me. They wanted to dance with me. They were showing me albums that they'd worn out, you know, played them over and over again. And the lady was saying, one lady said she could lay on her couch, but when that music comes on, she has to get up and move. I'm saying, that's what we want. It's dance music and it's love music. It's all about fun. And I even saw some little babies in there. I mean, it's family music, too. You don't have to send the kids out. You can listen to the music, and it's good. All generations now. We got 4 generations.
And what kind of music did you listen to?
Okay, there was a time when people took their children to church. My grandfather was Methodist minister. Metropolitan AME was the first African Methodist Episcopal Church in Detroit. And we would go there 3 or 4 times a week. And I remember singing at the age of 3 with my 2 brothers, Benny and Thomas, and winning candy. Because Dad, although he had 4 sisters and 3 brothers, there were 8 of them, we were the only kids that could sing. There were 12 of us. And we won that candy, and ever since then, I knew I could make my mother smile by remembering the lyrics she taught me. So it was all about pleasing Mom and Dad. When I got in elementary school, Mrs. Emily Wagstaff, who might have been German, is that a German name, Wagstaff? She was not very tall, but she was one of the sweetest people I've ever met, and she realized I could remember lyrics, so she would make an example of me, though the kids didn't like me. But I didn't like them either, because they didn't know anything. They wanted to make fun. But she would teach me things, and I'd sing things like Only a Rose and all the anthems. She taught me This Is My Country, America the Beautiful. And she'd stop the class 5 minutes before it was over, and she'd have me sing. And I thought that was really great. I made her happy, and I was the teacher's pet. The kids didn't like it, but I didn't care about that. So when I got in high school, Abraham Silver chose me out of 11 girls in the soprano section to sing Bach's aria. And my knees were knocking when I had to get up and audition for it. You know, hallelujah, hallelujah. I didn't know what to do, but he showed me how to sing it, and that's my operatic training. A lot of people hear me sing, they hear me hit high notes. It's because I have operatic training. And so after high school, I used to stand around in the schoolyard with other girls, and we'd sing, make harmony. That's what you call doo-wop. If somebody made a bad note, you hit them. That's what her doo-wop started. So the group named the Fascinations was my first girls group, and they didn't get along very well. They went on to record with Curtis Mayfield a song called Mama Didn't Lie. But I didn't go with them because somehow we didn't get along. So then I started singing as Martha Revees. Well, somebody said that there's a girls group named the Delphis who needed somebody to sing. So I got with them, and our voices blended right away. Gloria Williamson, Annette, and Rosalind, and myself. We started a group called the Delphis. So then I'm looking for some success. We went to Checkmate Records in Chicago under the direction of Fred Brown, one of our managers, and we recorded a song with J.J. Barnes called Won't You Let Me Know. We answered his record with a song called I'll Let You Know, but it didn't sell. 3 copies. I still have mine. My little 45. So the group broke up when we all graduated high school. I went on to sing as Martha Revees, and I was awarded after winning a talent contest 3 nights at a famous club in Detroit, which is now defunct, called the 20 Grand. All of us got our start at the 20 Grand. It was at 14th and Warren. Now I think it's a church. But that was a place where all of us got discovered. And I was awarded after winning this amateur contest, 3 nights at the happy hour. Well, my dad would let me in the house after 12, so I couldn't sing in the evening with the grown-ups. I had to sing. I was 21, but I had to sing between 5 and 10 to get home by 12. I had to catch the bus back to the east side. And this guy comes in the 3rd night of my award. I would say I was awarded 3 nights at the 20 grand. And his name was Mickey. William Stevenson is what was on his card, and he gave it to me and said, "You have talent." After I finished my Gin House Blues and what did I sing? Fly Me to the Moon and Canadian Sunset, because we're just across the river from Windsor, Ontario, from Canada. So I used to sing Canadian Sunset. And he gave me a card, and I thought he came to take me away. That knight in shining armor, he was very good looking. And when he approached me, I said, uh-huh. But he said, "Here, take this card. You got talent. Come to Hitsville, USA." We had heard about Smokey Robinson. We knew the group had a record out called Get a Job, and then the next thing they had out was Shop Around. And all the girls was falling in love with old, beautiful Smokey with his beautiful gray eyes. And green, they're green sometimes. And there was Mary Wells. She had met Barry Gordy at an audition for Marv Johnson. Marv was, record hops used to be where you should take your shoes off. Shoes didn't cost much, so you could line them around the corners of the dance floor, and everybody would slide around in their socks and listen to new records. So Mary approached Barry Gordy and told him, "I got a hit record." And she started singing, "Well, you took my heart." And that was her first recording. Well, we heard about Mary Wells. We heard how Barry Gordy gave her a chance, and I was anxious to get to that company. If I got a card, now I've been discovered. So instead of calling like I should, I showed up the next day. Here I go walking into this house. My dad showed me how to ride the East Grand Boulevard around to the West Grand. See, on the west side, used to be a thing where if you went on the west side, you get beat up. Well, I did. Oh, gangs. They were called the Shakers and the Shakerettes. The girls would beat you up if the guys didn't. And they had the Monte Cristos. I mean, they had gangs. Like everywhere now, there are still gangs. We had gangs. And if you went across Woodward, which is the center of Detroit, you'd get jumped on. But I dared go on the bus. And Dad said, "When you see the 2600 block, get off the bus and find the address." Well, luckily, it stopped on the other side of the island, and it was this house, this little tiny house with a hand-painted sign. So I'm saying, "Oh, my God, what have I done?" I quit my job at the cleaners. I was working at the dry cleaners. I quit my job and went to Hitsville that same time at 9 o'clock in the morning, which was actually secretary time. Here, this same guy who I'd seen the night before had taken his jacket off, undid his tie, rolled his sleeves up, and used to wear the finger waves. His hair was mussed. And when I went to the receptionist, I said, "May I see Mr. William Stevenson?" And she said, "Who you mean, Mickey?" I said, "That's what y'all call him." So she buzzed the door, and I went, and there he was on the other side of the door, undone. He had been up all night writing a song for this drummer named Marvin Gaye. And he asked me, he said, "Well, what are you doing here?" I said, "Don't you remember giving me a card and telling me to come to this company?" He said, "Yeah, but you're supposed to take the card and call for an audition." And the phone was ringing off the hook, right? Little tiny office, no windows, a desk, a piano, a clock, and a file cabinet. So he said, "Answer this phone, I'll be right back." Well, he was gone 3 hours. So I answered the phone. A&R department, "May I help you?" Because I had some training. I had a commercial course in high school, so I know how to answer a phone. I could take dictation, too. So people would say, "Well, who is this?" Because there was only like 17 writers, guys, no girls. They didn't allow women in the A&R department. Here I am at the telephone. And they said, "Well, are you the A&R secretary?" I said, "I guess so. May I help you?" "Well, where's Mickey?" "Oh, you mean Mr. Stevenson?" I kept it all formal. And one of the Marvelettes called, Gladys Horton called, and she said, "Where's Mickey?" I said, "Oh, you mean Mr. Stevenson?" She said, "Who is this?" I said, "This is Martha Reeves, and this is the A&R department." She said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, where's Mickey?" I said, "Do you mean Mr. Stevenson?" She said, "Girl, who are you?" She said, "I'm coming down to see." They lived in Inkster. She said, "I'm coming down to see who you are. You sound like a nice person. I'm coming down to see you. I ain't no A&R secretary." I said, "Yes, there is now. May I help you?" So I took a message. I did that for 3 hours. And finally, he came back, and I was indispensable. I left, I had torn some paper, and I left like a big, thick, all of those guys, 17 guys, had more than one woman. So I learned how to be a good secretary in the process. I kept them separate. One would come in the front door, I'd usher the other one out the side door. I kind of kept it straight. And it was a whole lot of work to do in one day. I got to know everybody. Freddie Gorman, even came in, God rest his soul. He plopped his postman bag down because he wrote Mr. Postman for the Marvelettes. He was actually a postman. And he later became one of the originals. But he came and plopped that bag down and said, "Who are you and where is Mickey?" I said, Mickey said he'll be right back. So he said, "I'm going to use this piano," because they used to fight over the piano. One little piano. All the writers would take their turn or get their time to write songs. So and it was a busy place. Pops Gordy was going through there with 2x4s, making the basement into a recording studio, which is now known for Studio A. And it was just a beehive. People were standing on the porch in lines, waiting to see Berry Gordy, trying to get auditions. And it was just wonderful.
Who decided, like, to who got a contract, who could sing?
Berry Gordy. He had a way of looking at you. You'd have an audition, too. Every third Thursday, they had auditions. But I came there at the wrong time. So instead of going away, I stayed there and answered that phone until William Stevenson came back, which is probably one of the most unique success stories that Motown has in their, in their memory. Everybody else would come and sit around and wait their turn to be auditioned, and Barry would go to the different amateur shows and choose people. Norman Whitfield would take a tape recorder, he'd go out to different clubs and he'd listen to songs. If he found an original, he'd come and he'd copy it. We had a system where any time of day you could come and make music, and you had the Funk Brothers on hand. The Funk Brothers didn't travel with us. They stayed there playing song after song for the different artists, and they had the unique talent of being able to play different for each artist. Do you know that the same people that play on Stevie Wonder played on my music? The same people that played for the Supremes gave them a special touch with Hallelujah Holland. The people that played for the Four Tops are the same men. And they did have a documentary not long ago, and I'm in it, for the Funk Brothers. So it was a unique place, and I'm glad to say that I'm one of the pioneers. And I have fond memories, very good memories. But that's how I got there. Mary Wells missed a session. I did a demonstration record for her. Berry Gordy heard it, and I finally got to meet him. I didn't even know him. With him? Oh, I'd heard so much about him because all of the guys were in awe of Berry. I will say that Berry didn't drink or smoke. Berry's very, very religious. I guess that's why there's so much success. He made over 30 people, 30 acts famous. And he even discovered Michael Jackson. So, he had a knack. He could look at you. He kind of had one eye that he looked out of, and he could look and probably see your spirit. Somehow he had the knack of knowing who was talented and who wasn't. And if the guys on the staff couldn't write a song for you, he'd get in there and he'd write a song to compare. They had quality control where they take the different producers' product, and he'd have a people like the secretaries and the clergymen and his friends from Ford Motor Company, the people he used to box with, all these people, he'd get them in the office, and he'd play these records for them, and he'd ask them to compare the music. He said, "Would you buy this or would you buy a hot dog?" And that's how he selected the songs to go out on the different artists. I mean, he had a down-to-earth and a very human way of developing talent. But if he looked at you and he didn't see if you had it, you didn't make it on Hitsville, USA.
How did you start singing, actually? How did you change from secretary to the microphone?
Well, the A&R department is where people come to report. The musicians come. I have a list of people. For instance, he was writing a song for this drummer, Marvin Gaye. Marvin was fourth on the drummer list. There was Benny Benjamin. There was Richard Pistol Allen, who recently passed away. There was Yul Jones, who was the last of the brothers to pass away. And then Marvin Gaye. Marvin played full set of drums. In fact, he traveled with Smokey Robinson and the Miracles for a while on the road as a road drummer. He was shy. Harvey Fuqua brought him there. He was a singer when he came, but he worked his way as a musician as well. There were 3 producers at Motown who could actually play all the instruments and do all the singing and produce and write all their songs. There was Smokey Robinson, who was the first, then little Stevie Wonder, who got to be so big, and Marvin Gaye. They were the 3 artists who could play their music, and Barry respected them for that, and it shows in their music.
And Marvin, was he like as much as a seducer as it is said to be?
Well, I saw a play, and I was so upset with his sister. I had to have a meeting with her. Marvin was a shy man, from what I know. We were asked to. I was asked as A&R secretary to get some girls to sing behind Marvin on Stubborn Kind of Fella. He had recorded some songs like Sandman and a couple of ballads. He wanted to be a balladeer. He wanted to be in the same rank as Sammy Davis Jr. and Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett. He wanted to sing ballads. But Mickey knew that he had to have some up-tempo songs, so he wrote Stubborn Kind of Fella and asked me to get the Andantes, Jackie, Marlene, and Lou Vane, who were the standard backup singers for Motown, to get them to sing behind Marvin, but they were in Chicago, and they weren't supposed to be. They were under contract, and they were the ones who sang behind the Four Tops. They were on 50% of my records. There are 5 girls, 2 of the Vandellas and 3 of the Andantes. Well, they weren't available, so I called the girls that I had been singing with. We had broken up after a record, but I called them in, and Rosalind, Annette, and Gloria. So Marvin had actually masqueraded around the company with a straw hat on his head, which he wore basically on his eyes, sunglasses, and a pipe. So you couldn't see how fine he was. He's a very good-looking man, very charming, and very, well, he was introverted. He didn't come out. He didn't talk very much. If he said anything to you, he was usually baby or sugar or honey, something mild and sweet. I never saw him lose his temper. Anyway, we got in the studio. We had 4 tracks. We had to stand on the mic with Marvin and sing. So when he took that pipe out of his mouth, those glasses off his eyes, and the hat off his head, we went doop doop doop, ow, yeah. Made that background right on the spot, and that followed. We followed that with Hitchhike, and then Pride and Joy, and then all the other girls got so jealous they wanted to sing behind Marvin. So that was the end of our love affair. But we loved Marvin Gaye, and he was so fine.
Maybe tell us about little Stevie Wonder when he entered the scene. I mean, you've probably been around at that time.
Wow.
How was that? Like suddenly, like I don't know, 12, 13-year-old gifted boy comes around, and how did he?
When I met Stevie, he was 8 years old. He had been discovered at a Pentecostal church. He was conducting an adult choir on a Hammond organ. You know, you play your feet and your hands. And this tiny baby was instructing and conducting a choir, adults. Ronnie White of the Miracles, God rest his soul, had seen him and told Barry, he said, man, you ought to see this kid. So Barry commissioned Ronnie to go back to the church and to bring Stevie in for an audition. The day they brought him in, there was a session in Studio A, so they brought him to the A&R department. Who's in there but me? I'm sitting in there. Here comes this kid in the door, right? And I said, hi, what's your name? He said, Stevie. And he said, I want to see what you look like. You sound like a nice person. And he came and he placed his fingers all over my face. That's how he got to see what I looked like. So after he was satisfied that I was okay, he found that my name was Martha, he started moving around the office. He had a nervous energy, and he never was still. He first went to the wastebasket and emptied all the paper on the floor and started playing the bongos on the wastebasket. So, oh, kid, don't do that. You're messing up. Give me that. So I picked up the paper, put it back in the wastebasket, and he moved around to the telephone. Well, that's when telephones first got the dial tones. That toot, 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 toot. This baby picks up the phone and starts dialing and making music, making melodies. I'm saying, well, no, you might call Russia. Stop, give me that phone. So I hung the phone up about it, and he had moved around to the typewriter. Typewriters used to make noise. And he was playing rhythms on the typewriter, but there was a ribbon in there and no paper. I said, oh, you're going to really mess up. Stop, kid. So I stopped him, got him off the typewriter. He had found the piano, that one little piano, little spinette that was in the corner. He found everything. He wouldn't be still. I'm chasing him around, but he wouldn't be still. So he finally gets to the piano, and he starts playing this piano. He's playing concert music, and we wind up doing the cartoon Mickey Mouse. Mickey Mouse, where are you? Here I come to save the day. You know that mighty mouse is on his way. But you know, that's symphonic music. That's some score, some Beethoven or something. And I'm looking saying, wow, he's fantastic. By then, someone comes, I think it was Clarence Paul, who was actually his mentor at Motown, came and said, okay, the Studio A is ready. Come do your audition. So I followed him in there. It's just a few steps away and down some stairs. And when he goes in, he sits at the baby grand piano and he plays it like you never saw anyone or hear anyone play his age play. He moved from there to the full set of drums, and he played the full set of drums. He moved from there to the xylophone, and there were sticks there. He played melodies on the xylophone. I don't know if he ever played one before, but he could play anything you put in his hands. Then he moved over to some jawbones and made some rhythms. Then they had a little baby piano that they made for special effects. He played the little short baby piano. And at the end of his audition, he pulled a harmonica out of his pocket, a little short one, and started playing it. And Berry Gordy remarked, "This kid is a wonder." Then the next thing you know, his name was changed from Stephen Morris to Stephen Judkins, then finally Stevie Wonder. And I was there, I saw it.
Okay. I think another story, you also saw the Supremes. Or you auditioned them? Or
No, they were there when I got there.
They were there already?
Yeah, they were already there, but they didn't have a hit. Smokey had written a lot of songs for them, and one in particular I remember was "Let Me Go Right, Let Me Go the Right Way, I'm Young." And it wasn't really a groovy song. It wasn't any soul in that song. Smokey was writing sweet little nice songs for them because that's the kind of act they were. And Mary Wilson, I think, was the first to say, we want songs like Martha and the Vandellas, because Holland Dozier Holland had hit with us with Come and Get These Memories, Ready for Love, Love Makes Me Do Foolish Things, Jimmy Mack, and Nowhere to Run. So they wanted songs like ours. So the next thing you know, the interest and the concentration shifted to the Supremes. And they got hit after hit. And the disappointment in my life was that we had two-sided records. Both sides of our record sold. A Love Like Yours, I Come Knocking, Jealous Lover, No One There. A lot of things on the B-side sold, so we got split play, 50-50 sales. So they didn't give us the million seller thing that everybody else was getting. But then when the Supremes came out, 45s were distributed and printed with both sides being the hit. So you couldn't choose or have to split play. So they made 10 number ones in a row. But I listened to how the technique that Holland Dozier Holland used, and you could do "Baby, Baby, Come See About Me. I got him back in my arms again." I mean, they did 10 songs with the same beat and the same rhythm, and the public went wow for that. And I said, all right, Holland Dozier Holland had the unique talent of keeping everybody with hit records. They also wrote a lot of songs for the Four Tops, the same old song. You know the history of Holland Dozier Holland.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know.
So, but we were first with them. In fact, Holland Dozier Holland, the first song they ever wrote as a compilation was "Come and Get These Memories." Eddie had a record called Jamie. He came back to Barry Gordy and said, "Look, man, I don't like traveling. I don't like the road. I don't like the girls pulling on me. I don't like getting up early in the morning. I don't like the DJs. I don't like the press conference. I don't want to do that. I just want to write with my brother Brian and Lamont." And we were the first ones to be blessed with one of their compilations, and it was come Get These Memories.
I think one song also written by them is "Dancing in the Streets." And
No, that was Marvin Gaye,
it's Marvin Gaye song.
Ivy Hunter, and
It's
William
true.
Stevenson. When I first heard "Dancing in the Street," Marvin was singing it.
Marvin is singing.
And the
Okay.
track was already done, so it was deputed. If somebody asked me who was the drummer on there, I can't tell you. I don't know who those people were that played Dancing in the Street. I just know when I heard Marvin sing it, like, "Calling out around the world, are you ready for a brand new beat, baby? Summer's here." I said, okay, I love the song, but I can't feel that. I've been to Rio de Janeiro, and I've been to New Orleans, and I've seen people actually carnival time dancing, and can I sing it the way I want to sing it? So they said, okay, go ahead, Martha. So I went calling out around where I felt it. And they were up in that glass window, celebrating and clapping each other's hands, saying, "Hey, man, we got a hit." And Lawrence Horn was an engineer at the time. He said, "Man, I done had a machine on." So they said, "Well, Martha, you think you can do it again?" So when you hear it, I sang it all the way through without any interruption. And there was a certain fire in my voice because I was upset I had to do it again. I thought I did a good job the first time. I was known as one or two takes, known for my ability to go in the studio and cut. I didn't need to have it punched in or punched out or correct me. Usually I had the idea of the song and I'd express it. I sang from my heart, in other words. And to have to do it again, I was very upset. I'll tell the truth. But I wanted to sing it, and I wanted to make Marvin and Ivy Hunter and William Stevenson happy. So the second time was the song that you hear when you play it. That fire and energy came just like magic.
And I think also this song is, I think you made it successful. Even if you Marvin sang first. And it was also like #3 in the pop chart, so it entered also the pop charts, got a big hit. How did it feel for you to be have an all-American success with that?
Well, when Mick Jagger and Dave Bowie recorded it for Live Aid as a benefit, and they sold more records than I did, I was jealous they didn't let me do that video with them. The two of them were dancing around with these flowered shirts on. I had a flowered dress. I could have been in that video.
Okay. Maybe one song, like driving down here to Allentown, we've been listening to some of your music. And there's one song, "Nowhere to Run, Nowhere to Hide," which is also like featured in a movie, the Vietnam movie, and which brings me also to back to the politics of the '60s. It was not really all the time peaceful times. It was times of social struggle, of civil rights movement. Did these aspects of politics and social struggle, were they relevant for you music in your life at the time?
Oh yeah, this was "Nowhere to Run" was recorded right after the Korean War. A lot of people overlooked the fact that it was a crucial war, and a lot of lives were lost, and it was superseded by the Vietnam War. This was in between those two wars, and when I came off the road that day and was asked to come to the studio, I wasn't feeling well. I was tired. I think I might have had the flu, but you didn't turn down sessions because you were blessed to get an opportunity with all those artists at Motown. Whenever you recorded at Motown, there was always an artist standing in the doorway saying, "If they don't get it, I want it." So I made a point to go and sing that song. But it had the empathy. It had the expression that you might have if you were in a war and you had nowhere to run. And it was used by a lot of the soldiers to get through some of their hard times. And we were told that. But then when Robin Williams in that Goodmorning Vietnam movie that produced by Disney, when he called our name out and that helicopter took off, it was one of the proudest times. My son had taken me to the movie and said, "Mom, don't jump up," because he knows I'm excitable, right? And he said, "Mama, don't jump up." And when Robin Williams says, "No, here's Nowhere to Run with Martha and the Vandellas," I screamed. I jumped up and he said, "Sit down, Mama." But that was a real thrill, and to know that we could be a part of that. But it was at a good time. Another thing that was surprising, Jimmy Mack was recorded 4 years before it could be released because it was on the very edge of the end of the Korean War. Holland Dozier Holland were very excellent writers. And Jimmy Mack, a lot of people thought that Mack meant Mac Daddy or something, but it was all about this guy going to Vietnam and when he's coming back. Then My Boyfriend's Back was written for the Angels, and then Leader of the Pack was written for another girls group. So they sort of helped express some of the social anxieties that we had with our men being away at war. So I know it had a lot to do with that.
How did you experience living in Detroit the year 1967 when Motor City was born?
The experience of being in Elizabeth, New Jersey in '67 when we suffered through JFK's assassination. The next thing you know, here's Martin Luther King's assassination. We were in Elizabeth, New Jersey when Martin Luther King's assassination was announced, and we were held up at a hotel for 2 or 3 days just to talk on the radio to tell everybody not to riot. Riots had started. So we go back to Detroit. I think everything is cool. Jimmy Mack is just being released, and we're getting ready to introduce it. And somebody says, "Come here, Martha," at the edge of the stage. So I go over to them. I think my dress is unzipped or something. Sometimes we go on and some things would unzip or something, and maybe a shoe comes loose or something. I thought they were going to give me some tip on what I'm doing, and they said, "There's a riot that's broken out in the city. Make the announcement and make sure that nobody panics because we don't want everybody stampeding out of here. Make sure they go home. There's been a curfew. Everybody has to go home." And you could hear the sirens, and you could hear all of the confusion and noise outside. So I go to the mic and I do a job that I could, and then I go backstage after everybody kind of leaves the theater, and I've got a room full of kids I got to take home. But I had to ride along in the streets to get them to their homes and saw the chaos. I asked later why our riot started, and I was told by a very reliable source who was actually involved in the after-hour joint that had been busted. You know what after-hour joint is? Oh. It's a place that's illegal that people go after the bars close. Okay. And sometimes they have activity in the daytime too that's illegal. They're selling drinks and they're gambling, and there might be prostitution going on. Anyway, this one lady of the street was being put into what we would call the Black Mariah, which was a van that was marked Detroit police, but it was a big black van. And they actually put their foot on her and kicked her into the van. And that was just the straw that broke the camel's back. The men around just couldn't. There were 4 4 white men mistreating a black woman in a black neighborhood. So it was just too much for the guys to stand. So the riot broke out in Detroit, and it escalated. We were asked to fly out and go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina the next morning. I left Detroit burning. My dad was patrolling the neighborhood. He had a scattergun shotgun. He said he was not going to let them burn the neighborhood store. Where would he get milk for his children? There were sirens. The plane did take off, but when we landed in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, Rap Brown was coming through there, and that was a fear of a riot happening, so we were asked not to perform, and we got on a plane and we flew from there to Los Angeles. We were in Watts, getting ready to do the Watts parade, and all of a sudden the riot breaks out there. So it seemed like everywhere we went that year, there was a riot. But that riot was going to happen. You oppress a people long enough, something like a rubber band has got to snap when there's too much pressure put on it. And we knew it was going to happen. And I think the world is all the better for it.
Last question, almost last question, is like today. The last years you've been working as a politician. You've been engaged not only to rename streets in Detroit neighborhood, but also you've been engaged in fighting for better rights for musicians, for royalties, for. How, if you see the situation today and back then, how were musicians treated? Like in the '60s, how was the music business towards musicians?
Well, I want to make it clear that Berry Gordy never did anything that other record companies didn't do. He got most of his instruction from guys who were successful in the business that he had conferred with in New York. He sort of based his company and the royalty rate and everything. So a third of a penny was never a lot of money, if you ask me. And that's what my contract was based on. I was there from 62 to 72, and all my royalty ever was a third of a penny. Although the other girls never sang lead, they got a third, the other 2/3 of that money. So I think that was very unfair, and as we become educated, we learn better. My dad used to say, find a fool, bump its head. Well, any business you need to get information. You need to get some kind of experience. So a lot of the musicians at Motown, when they first started recording, only got $5 a session. Just imagine, Shop Around was recorded, and because it was a 4-track company, all the musicians played at the same time together, but they received $5. One of my first confrontations as A&R secretary was Benny Benjamin and James Jamerson standing at the door saying, "Hey, where's that M&F and Mickey?" And I said, "Well, he's not here. May I help you? We want our M&F and money. We're not going to cut the session across the hall." I mean, they weren't treated fairly. The union did come into Motown and make sure that the musicians get a decent pay. But everything took a movement. Everything took some kind of a ceremony, some kind of stand-in or protest or something in order to get. Today, I think artists get 14% of their product, which is a big difference. And a lot of the music that's being made today isn't even real musicians. There's this one cat playing sounds and playing with noisy toys. But musicians are in a better position now. They're treated better now. But there was a time when they got very little compensation. And some of us have written songs, and I say us because I've written a lot of songs and never been compensated for them.
Like for Motown, what would you say was like the recipe of success for Motown? Like the voice, also the clothing, the way of to hold yourself on stage. What the package? What was it?
It was Berry Gordy's taste. He hired people to train his artists. Like I said, he could look at you and tell whether you were talented or not. If he could hear you, he could tell whether you could be a good artist or not, or what you needed, he'd get it for you. Whatever training you need, he'd get it for you. Artist development consists of Professor Maxine Powell teaching basic psychology and physical discipline. She called it class. She taught class. And taught us how to enter rooms or to present ourselves. She said if we listened to her, we would be presented before kings and queens, lords and ladies. And I did sing for the President Clinton. I did sing and Light the Christmas Tree one Christmas in '96, I think it was. And we have been presented before the Queen Mother and the Queen Elizabeth in England and all kinds of lords and ladies and all kinds of royalty. So, yes, her training did help. There was a Motown look, a Motown dress, a Motown way. Charlie Atkins taught us vaudeville. He taught us to dance with our feet as opposed to our bodies, like the girls are doing now. You got some hoochie mamas that are presenting things on stage now that Motown would never have allowed. We did vaudeville steps, and we still do them today. The Temptations' success, and Gladys Knight and the Pips. So even Michael Jackson was trained by Charlie Atkins, of Colin Atkins. They were from vaudeville, and they passed the hat. And then we had Maurice King, who taught us music theory. So everybody at Motown could actually read music. I mean, we knew what we were singing. We knew how to read and how to learn songs so we could be featured at places like the Copacabana and different hotels, Las Vegas, Atlantic City, the Town Hill. I could name a lot of places, England, Canada, everywhere. And so we were trained, and there was a Motown rule, to always present yourself and be respectable, which I think a lot of the artists today could use.
I think you should have to get rid of your respectability to be in style.
You're right.
What songs would you perform tonight?
Oh, we're going to do all of the songs that we can in 45 minutes. We've got like 3 hours of music, and we're going to do the most popular ones, and we're going to do the ones that are going to make people jump out of their seats. And I hope you get a look and see how people actually react to the music. It's a thrill, and it gets better and better every year. We're celebrating 48 years, but we got people that have been with us all this time, and they've come to see us tonight.
This is the 2 more questions, very short ones. Do you have like 5 songs or albums that you would recommend for our viewers?
Whose
from
music?
The 60s.
My music or their?
Your music or other people's music, your choice.
Oh,
Pick
man.
5 songs or 5 albums. You say you listen to that.
I hope I'm clever enough to do that, because I love everything that we ever recorded. I had a special relationship with every song, almost like having children. I lived with them long enough to learn them. We got dressed and went on stage and sang them long enough for people to like them. And then finally, when people liked them, we learned and rehearsed and got patterns to sing them so that people might enjoy them. So it's hard to even come up with 1 or 2 songs. There's a song called No One There, written by Johnny Bristol, God rest his soul. He was one of the writers at Motown. He was also Berry Gordy's nephew by marriage. Married one of Berry's nieces. But it's a song, No One There, that is highly requested whenever we play England. It was a B-side, mind you. I Wish It Would Rain, because the gentleman who wrote that for the Temptations actually was so in love, he committed suicide. And David Ruffin promised before he died that he would sing that song for him. And David did a wonderful job on I Wish It Would Rain. It gives me chills every time I hear it. Just Ask the Lonely by the Four Tops. The Andantes are singing those high voices along with Duke Fakir, who has one of the sweetest and most purest tenor voices that you ever want to hear in a group. And Mary Wells made a record called Two Lovers. And her life turned out to be one of such of a situation. But she was my first mentor at Motown, and I'll always love and admire her for her talent. Is that 5? Stevie Wonder, With a Child's Heart.
Okay, that's 5.
Okay.
Now the very last, what do you miss about the 60s from today's perspective?
I don't miss it. I think I'm stuck in the 60s because our music has a certain flavor and a certain way of taking me back. Whenever I sing Heat Wave or Coming to These Memories, I'm as young as I was when I sang them. In my heart, I hope I can still sound as good or go back and physically present the music, but in my heart, I'm as young as I was when I sang. They haven't sounded old to me yet. They haven't aged yet. And I can feel just that same age, and I think that's my fountain of youth. In fact, Berry Gordy said he wanted to make music that was a sound of young America, and the music is still young in my heart.
Me too.
Okay.